Welcome back to the Learn to Hunt series, Turkey Tuesday edition. This is our third installment of the Turkey Tuesday series. There's only 3 of these. And today we are going to wrap it up by talking about places to go hunt, regulations, a little bit of ethics, and some safety. So before we get into it, I just want to reintroduce myself. My name is Casey Harriet. I'm the R3 coordinator for the state of Oklahoma and National Wild Turkey Federation. R3 stands for recruitment, retention, and reactivation. So essentially, I help to create programs and initiatives that get people outside hunting and learning how to hunt. I have with me Jacob Harriet, the Lincoln County Game Warden, and also my husband, who is going to be helping me through this today. So without further ado, I think we're just going to get started here. One of the biggest barriers to hunting in Oklahoma with new hunters is learning about the places we have for public hunting. Would you say so?
Yeah, for sure. Access is the hardest part.
Yeah, access has always been the hardest part. It's knowing where the access is the hardest part, I think, because Oklahoma has quite a bit of public land, would you say?
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So we're one of the lucky ones that do have very large WMAs. And when I say WMA, I mean wildlife management area. And those are areas managed by ODWC staff, biologists, and technicians for wildlife. And we have many of them across the state. And they're all pretty scattered.
They're pretty well spaced out across the whole state. So no matter where you live, you probably have an opportunity within an hour at least.
Yeah. So the problem is trying to find these places and knowing where to look. And so part of that is I just want to show you, we're going to kind of do a little bit of a screen share and kind of surf our wildlifedepartment.com website. And it is literally wildlifedepartment.com. I don't know what we did to get to own the entirety of wildlifedepartment.com, but we don't have an Oklahoma on there. It's just wildlifedepartment.com. We are the wildlife department. Anyways, won't harp on that too much more. But I do want to share my screen here, so we can show you some of our interactive maps that we have. We have our Oklahoma Land Access Program. We have our WMAs, and then we have a couple other, we'll talk a little bit about core lands and some wildlife refuges, national wildlife refuges and such. So, all right. If we can see my screen there, we're going to go to our hunting tab. If you see my mouse, we'll go all the way down to hunting. And then we go all the way down to where to hunt. And this takes us to, we got a couple different interactive maps. There's a couple different ways to get to these items too. So we have our WMA list, which is just a list of all of our WMAs in the state. And if you were to click on this, if you had one in mind and you wanted to look more into this, and this has type of vegetation, what species are prevalent there, WMA biologists information, game warden information. So let's go, we could just say, let's just go to Cherokee Public Hunting. So we have GMA, which is Game Management Area, and then we have PHA as Public Hunting Area, which is kind of confusing. I would pick the funny one. How about we go to Cookson WMA, Wildlife Management Area. So this is what each one of these kind of look like. It has a beautiful picture of that hill country right there. And then you can scroll down and you can see, there's a nice little video. We have an actual PDF map of this, which is pretty nice. And it talks about, here's all your contact information for your wardens, your biologist, has non-ambulatory acres, which is great. And then the total acres that you have to choose from. And then it has all your driving directions, species of interest, all that good stuff. It's pretty intensive here. So if we go back, so that is kind of how, if you already have a WMA in mind and you want to look into it more, that is the first place that you should go. Secondly, our WMA interactive maps, these are pretty dang cool. So what these are is, you have to hit OK here, but these are our WMAs and the kind of, let's see, here's all of our WMAs in there. So is that Lexington right there? No, that's like Dahlgren.
Dahlgren's in Lexington.
Okay. Let's see. Why isn't it showing
That would be Lexington.
this?
No, I think you just clicked on the lake, but that's
Oh,
Lexington,
okay. I
yeah.
clicked on the lake. Okay, gotcha.
Lake Dahlgren's in
Okay,
Lexington.
the colors look a little different. Okay, so if you're in Oklahoma City area, probably the closest WMA to you would be Lexington WMA. And that is south of Norman. And you can see all the information here. If you were to zoom real far in, this map. You can see a lot of it. They'll have parking areas. There's our parking areas. You can drive to and from parking areas. You have shooting ranges. So we'll talk about shooting ranges here in a little bit, but it'll list any shooting ranges and their locations. These are food plots, I believe. And so you can see what type of food plots, where they have their food plots, and just overall. And you can switch your base layers on this to, whoops. Let me see if I can find it. Where's my layers? Base map gallery over here. You can switch your layers to if you want to look at aerials, because we talked a little bit about scouting for turkeys last episode, and so you can kind of look, if you were to look at aerials or topo maps, depending on what part of the state you're in, it would be a good idea to do so. So if you wanted to zoom in, you can really see the roads, see like where the food plots are located, where some edges, where some pinch points are, like we talked about. You have anything to add?
Yeah, no, it's just kind of let you see there's way more land out there than you'd ever be able to cover. So
Yeah.
just kind of pick a spot and dive into it and start looking around. But there's definitely lots of opportunities out there.
Yeah, so that is how you navigate our interactive maps. And they also have a app called ArcGIS Field Maps, and it is awesome for it's in your pocket. You know, you can use it on your phone, and you just search for ODWC WMA, and you can use all this stuff right there on your phone. You can have driving directions. So if you have an Apple phone or a Droid, you can hit take me there, and it'll take you right to the drive or to the parking lot of your choice or whatever you drop a pin, which is really handy. A lot of times, I remember on Onyx, you have to like look at crossroads, unless they've changed that. You have to look at crossroads and figure out where that's at. And if you want to just drop a pin and drive there, it's a lot of cross-referencing. It makes it difficult.
Lots of dead end roads and turnarounds.
Yes, I've been there and done that a lot. So.
And so we're looking at this on the computer version, but we also have our app, Go Outdoor Oklahoma, that you can access the exact same information. It just looks a little bit different because it's on your phone.
Yeah, you can access it there, or you can access it on the Field Maps app. Okay, so that is our WMA interactive maps. Now let's go to our Oklahoma Land Access Program. And what Oklahoma Land Access Program is it's where we lease private land from private landowners for public access. And it is, so this one new this last year. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember.
Yeah, 1 or 2 years ago.
A couple years ago, maybe last year. Why did the lights turn off? Oh, a couple years ago, we turned it into a permit access situation where it's a land access permit that we have upgraded to encompass OLAP. It's $100 a year, but it gets you access to all the southeast
The
Weyerhaeuser lands, and then all of our OLAP lands across the state. And there is a lot of OLAP lands across the state. So that is because we have to keep this funded to lease out these lands from these private landowners to keep this stuff available. So.
Yeah. So the OLAP is we're actually paying landowners a lease fee to open it up to public access.
Yes.
So, it's all on them. If they want to do it, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. So that payment just goes to them to kind of make it worth their time to, open up their private land for public hunting.
Yes. So I do want to preface and say that OLAP is private land, like Jacob said. So a lot of these are farmers and ranchers that have agricultural practices, and they can halt their access temporarily while they're doing agricultural practices, rounding up cattle, cutting, burning, whatever they need to do. And so these lands can be temporarily stalled to do this practices. And so don't check this out 5-6 weeks in advance and say I want to go there, and then not make sure that it's still available closer to that date, because they are supposed to give some warning, but still these could be fluid, and also they could just drop out of the program. So make sure that you verify and within the week that land is still going to be available to you once you go out there. Let's take a look at the map, the interactive map. So this is the same interface.
And so on these, like I said, they're private landowners, so we want to take care of them, make sure you're being respectful. We'll talk about ethics in a second, but on that too, so this program is basically just trying to get more access for folks. We talked about access is the most limiting factor. Well, this is a really cool way we can get land access without the state having to own the property, which works out great. That being said, that some of these properties, especially the ones closer to the metro areas, it might only be 160 acres, whereas a WMA, it's kind of free choice. You can come and go as you please. Well, we do have a limited access program on some of these properties. And what that means is actually kind of like a miniature draw. You can put in for dates that you're available to hunt, and then you'll get selected. And that's just to keep, on 160 acres. That's much different than a 2,000 acre WMA where we have lots of room to run around. So we just don't want to take care of that property. We don't want 100 people out there on 160 acres. So make sure you look into that limited access that process.
Yes. So yeah, the limited access is around the metropolitan areas. And if you look here, anything with a phone, that icon with a phone, if I zoom in, I think it'll go away. But one up here in Ponca, west of Ponca, we have some in north of Oklahoma
County.
City, east of Shawnee, and around here. And so these are all the daily draw. And how you put in for that is you go to our Go Outdoors.
Yep, it's an
under
application.
the event. Yeah.
Yep.
Under the events page, correct?
Yep.
Or that's okay.
Yep. You apply for it. You select the days you want. It's kind of like a mini draw, and that just goes on. It's pretty easy to get drawn. I haven't had anybody having too much complaint with it. But some of these properties are really, really good. And, you just can't overhunt them or pressure them out. We want to keep those properties very good and manage them well. So that's why we have this limited access. And be respectful of, we've had some instances where somebody gets the draw and goes out there and there's somebody else there. If that happens, call your game warden. They're probably trespassing. We can look into that and kind of take care of it.
Yeah. Also, the reason why we had to go to this route is because in metropolitan areas, it was really hard for landowners to agree to to sign up for OLAP because they were just worried about their properties getting overran. These are 80-acre tracts, 160-acre tracts, and so they're really small. So this is the other way to ensure that you're not going to be overcrowded there, like Jacob mentioned. But it is a way that OLAP had figured out to get access close to the metropolitan areas because if you see in Oklahoma City area, we are kind of a little sparse in our public land access here in the Oklahoma metro area. Tulsa, not so much. You got a lot of WMAs east of Tulsa, but around Oklahoma City, it's a little bit more limited. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to share this screen, and I want to show you guys most all of these. There's not rifle around on OLAP. Most all of these are archery and shotgun only, but that's perfect because we're talking about turkey hunting. So there's many, many, many options over in northwest Oklahoma, Woodward, north of Woodward, Buffalo, Freedom area. I personally have seen those properties. I used to be the OLAP technician, and a lot of those properties I walked many, many miles on to set up those properties, and so did Jacob actually. Yep. And so there's some good turkey habitat up there. I cannot speak personally for the rest of there, but we were up there through all this, and they're in that Woodward and North area. I saw a good population of turkeys. Of course, that was 7-8 years ago, but still, it's good habitat for it. And we have good properties up in Ponca City area too, and north of Weatherford. So, and down in the Southwest as well. I'm just not as familiar with those, but these are great. They're small tracks. Sometimes it'll tell you how much is in this. Let's zoom in more and see what we can. Oh, this is a tiny little one. Oh, Blaine. Okay. So this is what one of those looks like. And there's a parking, see how they have a parking area within it. You can send you can send your maps right there, your directions right there. But this is pretty cool. They're a lot more sparse and smaller, but they're not a huge track. So you can investigate this entire track if you wanted to, and really, really get in there and see what you got to work with. So lots of cool OLAP properties available. You just need that public access permit. And I know that there's a 3-day one. I believe it is, I think you might have it in your reg book here, which we'll look at in a second. 3-day one, I believe, is like $25. So if you wanted to just go up to Northwest, Oklahoma and hunt these OLAP properties up there for a weekend, there's that option. And then there's the $100 yearly one as well. I'm going to make sure Jacob is going to verify that for me, that there's that 3-day one. So while we're working at that, I'm going to exit back out, and that is this app. Oh, there's our field maps icon right there that I'm talking about. When you were to download it to your phone, this thing is handy. I would always have this in my pocket. Let's see. Okay, we also have our commercial hunt areas, and we have Army Corps engineer lands. So these are cool. These are areas, we have a lot of them, more so in the eastern part of Oklahoma. I'm actually from the eastern part of Oklahoma, northeast, and this was kind of my stomping grounds. I used a lot of Corps land to hunt when I was younger. And these guys are old school. They don't have any interactive maps, but I kind of like it this way because you can print one of these off. It talks about all the specific area regulations. It'll give you the whole map here, and then it gives you all the regulations and the restricted hunting and everything associated with this. So this is pretty dang neat, and they have a pretty long list of properties too. So I think this is definitely something that you should consider if you're in the eastern part of the state more so. But it's great property.
So that land access permit, it is, there's not a 3-day, there's just a land access permit. It's $100 for residents and $200 for
What
non-residents.
did I see?
There's a 3-day conservation passport.
Oh,
which
maybe that's what I was
does,
getting
does not
confused.
qualify for the OLAP.
Oh. Whoopsie. Okay. I believe you gained more than. Okay, so that was our Army Corps engineer lands, and then we can talk a little bit about city areas, state parks, stuff like that have opened them to it. You can talk on
Yeah,
that.
so there's some different options. Unfortunately for turkey, we don't really have anything around my area per se. I'm in Lincoln County, like I said. But for other animals like duck and deer, there's a lot of access out there. Most of those are municipalities, so they have different methods of how they either do a draw or you pay for a weekend or something along those lines. And it's kind of a beneficial thing that the cities own the land. They get a little bit of income from the hunting off of it, and it's a really good deal. That being said, there's a lot of cities that have land that is just sitting there fallow, and they're not doing anything with it. So I encourage strongly to call your cities and tell them that you have an interest in hunting. They might tell you no, but if enough people are asking about it, they're at least going to think about it. I actually taught a class the other day, and I just happened to be sitting at lunch with one of the guys that was on the boards for one of the towns in my county, and we got to visiting about it. And he's like, "Well, that's a great idea. I never thought about that." And so we might actually be able to get some of that city land open for public hunting, which would be awesome.
Also, a lot of people, they don't advertise it even if it is available to hunt. So even some of the state lakes or the city lakes and stuff, you just need to look into it a little bit. Call up there. They'll tell you if they have it available. It's just not something that they want to advertise, it seems like.
Yeah, a little bit of research and you can get a lot of access. You just have to put some research into it and make some phone calls maybe.
Yeah. And when we talk about hunting public land, I always, we'll talk a little bit about ethics in a second, but, I think public land gets a bad rap as far as being overran, just especially in the metropolitan areas. But we talked about how large these tracts are. And if you put a little bit of legwork in, there's definitely untouched ground in WMAs, every WMA probably, because they're all large. And so like if you were to drive up and, opening weekend is going to be one of your busiest weekends. So if you're worried about that, maybe hang back on opening weekend and try on the weekday or like the second weekend. And that's usually a little bit slower. Things slow down, but opening weekends are big for every WMA and every openings, season. And so I would suggest maybe hanging back and going on the week or the next weekend. But if you do go on the weekend, the opening weekend, that's nothing bad. And you can definitely get in there and find some good areas. It's just, you might see a little bit more parking areas full. And if you do see that, we encourage you to have a plan A, B, C, and D. Know the area beforehand. Know the different spots that you want to go, because there's going to be other hunters out there and they might know about an awesome spot like you do too. So I encourage you to have a plan B, C, and D and just go to those areas and don't sit up next to just right down the way from another hunter.
Yeah.
That's
and talk
cool.
to people. I mean, most your hunters are pretty friendly. I mean, that they get along with people well. Like she said, the opening weekends on some places are going to be very busy, but that's also a huge asset to you guys. I've been out hunting on some of these properties and been able to meet people that, they've hunted that place for 30 years. They say, well, hey, I'm hunting here, but this is usually a pretty good spot. You might check it out. It doesn't have a lot of pressure. So that it does have its drawbacks that there's more people, but you also have the benefit of getting to meet people and visit with people and kind of have that social kind of almost turkey camp type aspect of the hunting land.
Yeah. And also if you were to call your biologist that's running that WMA, they can give you some insight too on some places that they've either put in new food plots or recently burned, if we talked about that last time. burning, they're doing prescribed burns right now. And so that would be a good place to look too if you're going to try set up. So all those things come into play when you're talking about public land, but public land is a great asset, and it's not overran, it's not overused. A lot of times it's just the outskirts of it around the parking areas. People don't put a whole lot of legwork in. Not everybody, but a lot of them don't put a lot of legwork in. And shoot, sometimes you don't even have to. We have a friend of ours that has shot one of the biggest bucks he's ever shot. I know we're talking turkey here, but one of the biggest bucks he's ever shot, 75 yards from the parking area. And so he's a firm believer that you don't have to go in very far. And hey, that's true for him. So he's not wrong. So
the main thing is just to get out there and try it.
Yeah. So, as far as public land goes here in Oklahoma, and public options, we do need to talk a little about ODWC's shooting ranges. We talked about powdering your shotgun last week. So I think we should probably, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to show you guys. So we go to hunting and we go to WMA shooting ranges right here. And we have a WMA shooting range guide, but we also have this interactive map once again, where you can see the Ponca City has a really, really great one. We have Lexington. These are all of our ranges here in Oklahoma. And these are, Lexington and Ponca are one of the newest ones, and they're extensive. There's great options for you to take a shotgun out there and pattern your shotgun, get your rifle ready for deer season. And so I encourage you to check these out pre-season to get especially since we're talking turkey, make sure you're patterning their shotguns, put a turkey head on and shoot that shotgun. Yep. And make sure you got a couple, 10 or so BBs in that turkey head before you go out. And they're free as long as you have a hunting or fishing license or conservation passport.
No, you have to have the hunting license to use the shooting ranges.
Okay.
That being said, I want to touch, there are some some safety rules there. Those can be found in our hunting regulations books or online. Most of it's just kind of common sense stuff. Make sure you have your valid hunting license, and you can use those ranges for free. It's a pretty good deal. I run into a lot of people that they just think they can drive into the countryside and shoot guns on somebody's random place and decide in their firearm because they don't have somewhere to go. Well, that's not legal and you can get in big trouble. But these shooting ranges, for just buying your hunting license, that's a great resource that you have, and pretty well spread out across the state as well.
So to confirm, it's just hunting, it's not fishing or conservation passport?
You got to have your hunting license.
Got to have your hunting license. Okay, so now that we've talked about the shooting ranges, we do need to talk a little bit about ethics. As far as a good hunter goes, we need to make sure we represent ourselves the right way and respectfully, so that other people can, think we're not so bad, right?
Yep. So I tell everybody, it doesn't matter if you've hunted your whole life or it's your first time ever hunting. When people see you out there, they see you as a hunter. So if you're doing the right thing, they're going to say, oh, okay, good job, hunter. If you do the wrong thing, they're saying, well, every hunter is bad. This guy did this. So make sure you're using good ethics and being kind and polite and respectful of the resource.
Yeah, and these public lands are a resource that we've been graciously given, and so we want to take care of them. We don't want to leave our shotgun shells everywhere, especially those OLAP properties that are private landowners. They see that, they're going to pull their property out. They don't have time for that. Most of it is a working operation, a cattle operation, ag fields. So they don't want their properties a mess. Don't stretch fences. Don't climb on gates. There's things that just as a courteous, respectful hunter that we do to make sure that we make ourselves look good. And so we have, these resources in the future. And also, to set the example for next hunters, future hunters, if we're taking our kids out there, we need to show them how to be respectful because they're the next generation of them. And they need to grow up knowing how to respect the resource or we won't have it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Common sense comes into play, just go out there, be respectful, use common sense, and you'll probably never have a problem. If you drop trash, pick it up. If you see trash, pick it up. It's not that hard, especially like she said in that OLAP property. Those guys can make a lot more money leasing it out to private individuals. Most of them that are leasing it into this program are doing so because they are passionate and want to give access because they know that's a limiting factor for people. So it's definitely a good thing we got going. Don't mess it up because, like I said, it doesn't matter if you've hunted 100 times or the first time. You are a hunter.
Yeah, and always help another hunter out if you can. This isn't a solidarity operation here. This is a group effort, and we want to help each other out. It seems like hunting's kind of gotten solo over time, and used to have turkey camps and deer camps, but now even public land is public hunters can be possessive over public land. And so share the resource, help somebody else out. It is all part of being a respectful hunter, an ethical hunter, and someone that wants to teach and set an example for the next generation too. Okay, so we talked a little bit about ethics. We need to talk about safety. Just go over, and I'm going to leave that to Jacob, who does hunter ed teachings all the time, hunter safety teaching. So,
Yeah, like I said, most things in this common sense. So safety wise, especially when we're turkey hunting, you're out there. For one, you're trying to look and sound like a turkey most of the times. If there's other people out there, well, they're trying to find turkeys that look and sound like a turkey. So just be cautious of it. Firearm safety is huge. I mean, we can't stress that enough. But basically, for one, don't load that gun until you need to. So if you're walking around or you have to get across the obstacle, keep it unloaded till you're ready to hunt. It's pretty easy with turkeys. You kind of get set up, or when you're starting to get close to that turkey, you just load up and do it safely. But we're going to treat all guns as if they were loaded. We're going to know our target and what's beyond it. That's huge in turkey hunting, especially if multiple people are trying to get in on a gobbler and you have a shot opportunity. We don't want anybody being behind that. So make sure we have a safe backstop. We're going to keep our finger off the trigger until we're ready and made the conscious decision to shoot. And we are going to we're not going to point that gun at anything that we do not want to shoot or destroy. So the firearms are a tool. If you use them correctly, you'll never have an issue. I've had to work some, firearm or hunter incidents in my career, and every single one of those, there was one of those rules that was broken. So just be smart. Firearm safety is huge. On top of that, we want to kind of avoid a few things. So we want to avoid wearing red, white, blue, or black, the colors of a turkey. So you don't want to get confused. Through the leaves, a good smart hunter will never shoot at something that he hasn't identified, but it has happened before. So try not to look like a turkey. If you harvest a bird or you have a very realistic decoy, it is a good idea to have some sort of orange flagging or something to say, hey, this is not a real turkey. Hopefully this never happens, but I've had this call before too. Setting up decoys in a field alongside a road. I've had people pull down the road and shoot those decoys off the road. So I like to have a good solid, either a tree or a big dirt bank or something between me and the road and my decoys. If not, just always have some sort of good backstop. So if somebody comes in behind you, they see your realistic decoy, thinks it's a bird, and they shoot at it. Hopefully there's no issues and we never have that happen, but you just a little bit of extra safety there. Other than that, just basic safety. Tell somebody where you're going. If I'm going to go out hunting, I'm going to tell my wife, hey, I'm going to go out in this area and I'll be back at this time. Then that way she knows, hey, if something happens, he hasn't shown back up, she can call. We do some search and rescue stuff. I've had that on WMAs before. It is really hard for me to go find somebody if I know nothing about who they are or where they're at. So tell somebody where you're supposed to be. It gives us a spot to look. If something was to happen, fall, twist an ankle, anything like that, we can find you easier. Just some good stuff to have with you. A whistle is very beneficial. You can't yell for very long. You're going to lose your voice pretty quickly, but you can blow a whistle for a long time. So hopefully, most our WMAs, we can find you pretty quick. They're not that vast of an area, especially if we have a good spot to start looking. It's usually not that hard to find you, but having that whistle allows you to make noise for a long time.
What would you say is the most common, issue with hunters, like safety issue with hunters on public land, like dehydration, overheating?
Well, usually it comes back to some sort of firearm issue.
I guess I mean like a search and rescue sort of thing.
Usually it's people just not being prepared. So whether that's they're not prepared in the sense that they don't know anything about the area, and they go in and they get turned around and don't know their directions, or they they don't take enough water. They're out of physical condition to do what they're doing, so they hike way back in somewhere. Say they harvest a deer, but then they're not in physical enough shape to get that deer out of there. So it really just all comes down to being prepared. Take what you need with you. Know where you're going. Know how to get back, and the big thing is just tell somebody where you're going and when you'll be back.
So that's another part of the ethics thing. Be confident in your abilities. If you're going to go on an elk hunt, for whatever reason, you need to prep for that elk hunt. If you're going to be hunting turkey, and sometimes our springs are hot.
Yep.
And so if you're not acclimated to that and you're going to be running and gunning, walking up and down hills all day long, you need to kind of prepare for that.
Get in shape.
Yeah, get in shape and make sure you have all the things you need, like a water, even if you need a camel pack or something on your back, just have plenty of water, have plenty of, electrolytes and food on you. and just know what you're capable of before you go out there.
Yeah, and I kind of along that lines as well is tick-borne illnesses. Is having some sort of plan for ticks, either whether that's using bug spray or using a permethrin spray or just checking frequently. Those tick-borne illnesses are getting worse and worse. It seems like I hear more people that are struggling with those. You do not want them. I've had them. It is not an enjoyable process. So if check for ticks frequently and have some sort of plan to prevent ticks.
Yes. Okay, so we talked about where to hunt, shootings, ethics, a little bit ethics, and some safety. Okay, the big one is you need to be legal in the field. So let's talk about some regulations before we send them on their way.
So I'll talk about some hunting regulation stuff. It's pretty simple for spring turkey season. There's not a lot that you can do or, get in trouble with, but it happens every year. So the main thing is we need to have a place to go, whether that's public or private. You need to know the area, know the landscape. We don't want to be trespassing. Trespassing is probably the number one call I get. It's real tempting when that gobbler's across the fence gobbling just to hop over the fence and shoot it real quick. Nobody will ever know, right? Wrong. I mean, it happens every year. We catch people every single year. So be ethical with that. Don't trespass. It's not that hard. Know your boundaries. Not that hard. Licensing is very important as well. So for resident and non-resident hunters, you either need a hunting license, whether that's resident or non-resident, and then a spring turkey license, aka your tag. We call them licenses, not tags, but it's important to have that. So after you get out there, you've got your place, you've got your license. Now when you harvest a bird, there's a few things you still have to do. So you need a field tag on that bird. It's supposed to be the first thing you're supposed to do when you harvest a bird. Before you take pictures or anything, put your field tag on it. That's claiming that bird is yours. A field tag needs to have your name, license number, time, and date of harvest. And just put that on there. It doesn't have to be anything that is purchased from us. I'm cheap. I use duct tape and a Sharpie. So as soon as I shoot my bird, I'm going to take my duct tape, write my information on it, put it around that turkey's leg. I'm legal at that point. If I was to check you with a bird and it did not have a field tag on it, technically you'd be in violation. So we don't want that. After that field tag is on there, you have 24 hours to check that bird into our online system. Most people anymore do that on our Go Outdoor Oklahoma app, or you can also do it on the website. It's really not that hard. It's simple. If you have troubles with it, call your local game warden. We can get it. I usually tag some birds, especially for some older guys. They just struggle with the phones, and I'll tag their bird in for them. It's no big deal. On that note, make sure all that information is accurate. It is actually a license revocable offense to falsify information to that check station. So we have that every year. Somebody, they don't have a license, but their son does. So they go out there and they shoot a bird and check it in under their son. Well, you can get your hunting license revoked for that, as well as significant fines as well. So don't do that. So we got our spot to go. We got our licenses, and we know what to do after we get the bird. Have some sort of kit. This kind of goes back to being prepared, but have some sort of kit, whether, that is your duct tape and Sharpie or whatever your tag is. Have some cleaning stuff if you need to clean those birds in the field, but just make sure you have all that. As far as firearms go, you cannot use a rifle. I've already had an incident this year where I had a gentleman that thought he could shoot a bunch of turkeys out of season with a .22. Not legal, especially in a housing edition, but it happened. So 22s are not legal. Rimfire and centerfire rifles are not legal. You have to use a shotgun with bird shot or not double-aught buck or slugs. Just turkey loads, and then or archery equipment and legal archery equipment. It's pretty hard to go wrong with that. There are some stipulations to it, but I'm not going to get into that. If you have questions on it, let me know. Most your regular archery equipment is going to be legal for turkey hunting. So have the correct equipment and just be respectful of people. Like I said, the trespassing thing is huge. For whatever reason, gobblers get very, very tempting, and they draw people across the fence or they make them bend the rules just a little bit, and it gets a lot of folks in trouble. And it's just not right. When you in the state of Oklahoma, or really in the country, the state, the people of the state own the birds. So I own those birds, you own those birds. Nobody individually owns it. We don't, as the wildlife department, own it. We just manage it for you. So if somebody goes in there and they're doing it wrong, they're stealing from you. So whether that's a guy goes in and shoots a bird illegally, well, that could have been your kid or your grandson's or granddaughter's first turkey they ever got, but now it's been stalled by somebody doing it illegally. So be respectful. Don't shoot off the road. We don't want anybody driving around shooting off the road. You cannot shoot shoot turkeys either. So that'd be shooting the turkeys out of the tree. They're very vulnerable, in the evenings. when they're going in the tree. Some of our WMAs actually do not allow you to hunt in the evening time, so make sure you check that on your specific regulations for wherever you're going. But that's just to give those turkeys an opportunity to get up in the roost. Baiting is another thing that we see frequently. It seems like everybody these days have a corn feeder out there. For one, corn is not good for turkeys, especially when it's hot and moist outside like it will be during season. So I do not advise feeding corn, although that is legal, but you cannot hunt over corn. So you cannot harvest a turkey within 100 yards of bait. That means you or the turkey cannot be within 100 yards of any sort of bait source, be corn or milo or any sort of seed, anything like that. Decoys and recorded calls. So you can use decoys. That's 100% legal. Recorded calls are illegal. So you cannot use your phone with a recording. You can't use some sort of predator call with a coyote recording on there. Cannot use any sort of electronic calls for calling in turkeys. And I know that differs in some other states.
We had a question. Can you use a bait turkey? Like one
A
of
bait
the,
turkey. No, you can't go. You can't go tie your pet turkey
You
up
can't
there.
go to Atwoods, get yourself a turkey.
It's
and
not legal.
They will call them in though, but it's not legal.
Yep, can't do that. You can use artificial decoys, but not live decoys. Other than that, we can talk about this. Shooting hours is 1/2 hour before official sunrise to official sunset. So it's not like deer where you have that extra 30 minutes after sunset. You have to quit at sunset, not the 30 minutes after. And
That's
that's
the
like
reason for that.
to let those birds get up on roost and settle in. Turkeys are a delicious creature, and everything wants to kill them. They do not do very well at night, so they need to be in those roost trees and be protected. If they get bumped off the roost or they don't get into a safe roost, they can really suffer from predation, and we don't want that. And then just the definitions of a turkey. For our hunting season, we're allowed to harvest one tom turkey, and a tom turkey is anything with a beard. It doesn't matter male or female, it just needs to have a beard, and that is your tom turkey.
So you know how we talked about jakes and toms? Well, jakes are still under the regulation guide considered a tom when you're checking them in.
Yep. So you'll check them in, and when you go to check them in, I believe our check system has a beard under 6 inches and spurs under 1/2 inch, and that is just an immature jake. So just check those in accordingly.
Yep.
Other than that, that's all I really have for hunter safety and hunter regulations.
Did you say you could shoot hens or not?
Do it.
Can you shoot hens?
No, it's tom only.
Yes.
So it has to be a bearded bird, which you can shoot a hen if it has a beard, but it has to be a bearded bird.
Right.
Yeah, male and female doesn't matter. Just it has to have a beard. Other than that, that's all I really have. It's a great time to get out in the woods. Make sure while you're out there, you can scout for deer, you can look for mushrooms, you can look for sheds. It's just a really awesome time to be out in the woods. So get out there and enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wrapped everything up. We did biology and habitat first. We did gear and setup. And this wraps it up with where you can go to shoot these things, huh?
Yep.
So, okay, well, we wish you guys a very, very successful turkey season. And if you have any questions, you can always give me a call. I will put my contact information below, but my number is 918-629-4991, or you can email me or email Jacob or your local game warden with any questions. If you're ever hesitant, always call a game warden. Jacob, I hear this every time. Jacob says, always call your game warden, and he'd rather get 10 billion phone calls, someone going out in the field before they go out in the field, making sure they're all legal before they go out there and mess something up.
Absolutely. So all the game warden's numbers are public. It's on the second page of this regulation book, or if you just Google Oklahoma Game Warden Directory, it'll pop up a list by county. Please call me if you're unsure on something. It's very hard for me to determine if somebody is lying or somebody just made an honest mistake. And unfortunately, people lie to us a lot. So call me beforehand. That way I don't have to sort it out in the field. Keep you out of trouble.
Yep. And when you do harvest that turkey, please, please, please share it to the Tailgate, which is our online submission for, you can upload your harvest. I love to look at those photos. I'm the one that signs off on them. So I would love, love, love to see it. And if you can put in the description that you watched our little series here, that'd make my heart real happy. So, all right, we'll just send you guys off. Happy hunting and good luck out there, guys.
Yep. Thank you. Good luck.